I want to talk about culture today. I'm hoping, so I talked about this last year too, and I was a little worried because it is a marketing conference. And one thing, if you've known our brand for a long time, and what was something that's been all our mentality at 97th Floor, but specifically mine early on when I used to speak, is I want sessions to be very actionable. I hate going to conferences and hearing the general, high level fluffy stuff, or where they're hawking their product, or they're not really there to help the audience. That's always been not our MO. And so it's a little hard with me with culture because it's obviously a little more high level, but I'm hoping there can be some things that you can take away and apply no matter what role you're in. So we have startups here, we have a lot of VPs and CMOs and things like that, and more the team building side, and then we have some more established business owners and things like that. So I'm hoping what I say kind of caters to all of that. So let's jump into it. So I want to focus on kind of the next step of company culture. I want to talk about kind of what is not company culture and kind of what the next step is. And I use this picture a lot. It's a really cool one for when I use words like focus and things. But it was actually taken by my brother, who's in the audience. He's a photographer, so I like a lot of his pictures, and you'll see a few more in here today. If you see two other mini-me's running around today, I have both my brothers here today, and we look exactly the same, everybody says. I'm the oldest, so I can call them mini-me's. But like Wayne said, we believe very strongly that culture comes first because that leads to getting the best talent. We talk about having A players at our company because when you focus on culture and then you get the best talent, you become a self-policing environment where you don't have to worry about the stupid little stuff, the backbiting, all the stuff that has nothing to do with the work, and everybody can just get the job done and kind of work together, and it works really well. And what that equates to is obviously better results in work for the clients, or in your case, it would better results in your specific scenario. But another reason why I want to talk about it is because the next generation is coming, Gen Z, and Deloitte. They care a lot about culture. Deloitte did a really good article, a really good study and write-up that just came out like a month or two ago on Gen Z. And the other thing is I'm hoping that all my pop culture I like to use pop culture references in my slides. I think all of them will be over Gen Z's heads. So if anyone's in here Gen Z, I think these are older, too old. You don't know what movie that's from. But so what they say in here you can go through, but basically what they're saying is Gen Z professionals likely also expect to have a culture that supports flexibility, prioritizes well-being. This shift's been underway for a long time. That's nothing new, but what's interesting is the last sentence. Most Gen Z professionals may not perceive these programs as a perk or a gift, but rather an expectation. And I think the first thought is to kind of jump down the road of like, Gen Z's entitled, and they're enabled, and they were the trophy for everyone generation, and things like that. I'm on the border. I was born in 1980, so I'm on the border of millennials, but we got a lot of that with my generation too. I don't think that's true at all. I think, honestly, what Gen Z why they expect it is because I think if they were in my shoes and we're going to run the company, they would it's just part of who they are. They just think of things that way. They focus, there's a lot more work-life balance thought there and things like that. So I don't think it's coming from enabling at all or anything like that. Or entitlement. I think it's more coming from like, that's just the way it should be. Because it is true, the better the culture, the better the work. So this is not culture. Ping pong tables is not culture. We had a billboard when we won Inc. Best Places to Work. We had a billboard that says, how we won the culture award, but we don't have a ping pong table. So, but like thinking ping pong tables as culture is like thinking you can buy your way into college. It's kind of the same thing. I had to, yeah. Have mercy, right? But that's kind of the same. So I want to go into what is company culture. So this is our mission statement. We elevate brands and people we believe in. So this is kind of like our why. This has changed. So for a long time, we like the word elevate because of 97th Floor and things like that. But for a long time, it was elevate brands we believe in. And we recently added people we believe in, and I'm ashamed to say it probably took too long to actually like make it we obviously were doing it in our actions, but when we started the company, obviously we were very customer focused and just retention rate, don't lose customers, do a really good job. But like Wayne was saying, as we realized the people matter first, that will take care of itself. So this is our mission statement. This is our why. We want to elevate. We want to better the lives of our brands and better the business of our brands and better the lives of our people. These are our values. So autonomy is number one. I talk a lot about autonomy a lot. We'll talk about that in a sec. Tenacity makes sense. Kaizen, is I'm pronouncing it right? Kaizen? That's a Japanese word that is like always improving. And that's a really cool, there's a lot more. It's really a really rich word in their culture. Innovation, selflessness, ownership, optimism, those are all pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to go through some of these through my session. But so that was the why. This is kind of the what, and then this is the how. This is how we get it done. So our guideposts are our clients, our careers, charity, leadership, and legacy. So we're a marketing agency. We work with clients. We want to help them out. We want to make it the best place our employees have ever worked. And we do a lot of giving back, and we want to encourage our employees to give back, and then obviously provide opportunities to lead not only in the company but outside in the industry too. We have a lot of employees that run like other networking conference things, and Paxton is becoming a professor where he's teaching. We'll get into that in a little bit too, and then obviously legacy, something that we want to leave behind. We're not just here to kind of churn and burn, make some money, and leave. So when we started focusing on this, and really right around the time we switched to ROW, which I'll talk about in a second, we saw all the things that kind of matter to a business bottom line go up. So client retention rate went up, employee turnover rate went up, or got better, not went up as in we turned over more employees. We kept more employees. Goal completion percentages, so satisfying the KPIs of our clients got better, and our revenue per employee got better. I had around the same time that we kind of really made the switch is when I moved to California too, about almost 5 years ago. And I had a lot of friends that thought we were complete psychos. Like, dude, you're moving out of state and you're going to let everyone just work from wherever they want, whenever they want, and not have any kind of rules or regulations, or policies or things like that. Like, it's going to burn down. And it's been the exact opposite. Because the actual company values, as opposed to the nice sounding values, are shown by who gets rewarded, promoted, or let go. It's shown by our actions as the agency. That's Wayne's quote, by the way. So where do we start? Let's talk about how we can get into it. So autonomy, another picture from my brother. I wanted to usually when I show a picture of autonomy, I have like a Tesla or a self-driving car or things like that. Why I wanted to show nature is I feel that agency is part of our beings. That's who we are. It's like a natural, it's a law of science, it's a law of the universe. We need to be, sentient beings, that we need to act for ourselves. We need to, it's just who we are. We're humans, we're at the top of the food chain. We have brains that work very well, and we just need to be able to figure out things for ourselves. And it's more about guiding, at a company, guiding your team members to be able to have the most help possible to figure things out for themselves. But just like with my kids, if I can get them to learn something for themselves, that is way better than telling them, or forcing them or things like that. So ROW is part of that. So for those of you not familiar with ROW, that stands for Results Only Work Environment. So if it doesn't have anything to do with the results, it's thrown out the window. And I'll talk about that more in a sec, but basically let's just focus on what matters, the results. And I'll talk about how we do that in a sec. So this is one way we do that. So this is our campaign manager's productivity worksheet. So they all have KPIs that their clients have. I obviously had to blur out the KPIs in the clients. But what they come in every Monday and they update it, and then it will show the current health of that contract. And this is where Paxton can kind of log in really quick and see how the work is going and kind of go. But it's all about the KPIs. I could care less if the employee that's filling out that form on how his client's doing is in India at the time. We'll talk about that in a sec. We had an employee work there for over a month. But we don't care where they are. They don't have to log in or clock in before they're filling that out. It has everything to do with the work and what the KPIs are we're doing for our clients. And we kind of work backwards from there. So, story time. So, Maggie and Colin are both employees at 97th Floor and both been employees for a really long time. They both do things completely opposite of each other, and they're both awesome, awesome, awesome employees that are a huge part of our culture. So Maggie is one of our lead designers. She's amazing. She's not here, is she? She's amazing. She's awesome. She's been there for a really long time at our old office, several old offices ago, things like that. Anyways, when we switched to Row, she flourished even more. And she, right after that summer, she always wanted to go to India. That was a dream of hers. So she went to India for a month with her husband and worked from India for a month. And it was like a couple months after we switched. So like we switched in February that year. This was in the summer. Nothing happened, nothing burned down, her team was fine, the work got done, and she had the trip of a lifetime with her husband to be able to, to do some things that she wanted to do. And it was we were really ecstatic about it or encouraged it because it showed other employees. I think sometimes there's a lot of criticism with like flexible work environments where you kind of have pressure on you to prove yourself by, okay, I don't have to be here all the time, but that means if I am here all the time, then I look even better. That's totally not how, don't reward that at all. And so we were really excited about her doing that because that was something we could kind of highlight and show employees, like, look, you can have this work-life balance. It's all about the balance. I was doing that all the time. I would go somewhere on vacation or do something and get some work done and was kind of enjoying those privileges as the owner of the company, but we quickly realized everybody should be able to do that. Colin, he takes vacations and stuff, so I don't want to say that. But and she mostly works from home. She works remote. She travels a lot. Colin is in there 9 to 5 almost every day. That's just what he likes. He likes the regimen. He likes, he's one of our writers. But he's in there 9 to 5 every day. We don't know that. We don't track that. We know it from seeing him there. But that's just how he wants to do. And it totally works for him. But that's totally both of their choices. And it works really, really well. And both things, in both cases, you need to focus on that they're doing good work and not about how often they're in there or whatever. It's all about figuring out, just relaxing a little bit and figuring out how to let people be themselves and focus on more how to make that work and mesh that than trying to pigeonhole everybody or get them to fit into a box. I had a story last year that I talked about. I'll just briefly touch on it, where when we were kind of figuring all this stuff out, I had a friend who had a company that was growing really fast. He had like 300 employees at the time. And at the time we were in the 20s. And so I was trying to get advice from him. I assumed he knew what he was doing. And he did on a lot of things, but I came into his office and he had showed me this software that he had just put on his computers that was watching all of his employees' computers. And he was like, dude, isn't this awesome? I know. I knew that employee was wasting time on Facebook. Now look at that, dude. He's been on Facebook like 3 hours. Like, that guy's gone. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is like all the movies, where you're being watched. It's like Minority Report. But anyways, that was like a really good turning point for me because I was like, this is his answer to when things would go wrong and people would have problems was throw way more policies and make it stricter, which is kind of like the old school way of parenting. If your kid doesn't figure something out, just take more and more away, and until maybe they break. I don't know what the goal is there, but that's not how we're supposed to be. So anyways, that was a really big turning point for me. We need to let us be who we are and just figure out how to mesh it all together. So one of the ways you can do that is focusing on this KPIs specifically. Don't judge anything else. Nothing else besides the KPIs for those individual roles. So let's talk about that. Oh yeah, well first real quick, what are some non-KPIs? Button seat is not a KPI. How often that person is in the office, first in, last out is very old school, very antiquated. That's not how we should be doing things now as a business. Burnout is not a KPI. So many times you'll see on social or you'll see on other things where a boss or CEO will be like, man, this team was in here all night. They didn't even leave. You guys came in today, they're still here. Isn't that awesome? They're crushing it. They were working all night, burning the midnight oil. Every single thing about that conversation is wrong. That's not how, if you have to be in there all night, you probably are not doing the work right. First of all, maybe obviously there's excuse. That's going to happen sometimes. You got a big product launch, or something goes wrong, software doesn't work, and you got to fix it. But for the most part, that should not be something that we ever congratulate on or try to inadvertently teach the rest of people that that's how they should be. There's a really, really, really good article, if you haven't read it, on Medium from Ariana Huffington on her burnout story. It's really, really good. I saw her speak at a conference, and it was really good, really, really compelling. I think she actually fainted from burnout or something, but she was all messed up, and it totally changed her perspective. So when we were kind of figuring this all out, about the same time that I was talking to that guy I was telling you about that had the software, we had an employee who was an amazing designer. Took our design to the next level as a company. Some of our best, most awarded work we still have to this day was from him. Super creative, just amazing. He was perpetually late. He was late all the time. Not 2 hours late, but he was 5, 10 minutes late or whatever. But at the time, I'm young business owner. That worried me. Now, first of all, I'll get into that in a sec. So anyways, I started trying to come in extra early to catch him being late, right? Sit in my office at this old junky title company is what we took over our office. My office was right by the stairs when you came down. And so I'd want to be there to see what time he would come in. We didn't clock in, but still we paid attention to it at the time. And I'm going to have this talk with him, about how he needs to be on time early. Even though he's crushing it, his team loves him, his clients love him, there's literally no problems. And some of the other designers were having problems with revisions with their clients and all kinds of stuff. He was amazing with his work. So I sit him down and I talk to him, and we get to the point where I'm talking to him about why. And he tells me why he's always late. He's got super young kids. At the time it was just one. But young, and he wanted to help his wife just get his kids situated before he got out the door, and he lived about 35 minutes away too. And so that usually always put him 10, 15, 20 minutes late. And then I'm sitting there and it's hitting me, and I do the exact same thing. So I actually live really close to the office at the time, but I'm really big, at the end of this world, but when I die, the first thing I want to be judged on is how I was as a dad. And I came in late all the time because I like to drive my kids to school. And most of the time I left at 2, and I'd pick up my kids from school and I'd go coach them in basketball or things like that, but I wasn't letting anyone else do that. I'd go coach. Sure, if they asked I would have, but it wasn't a thing, right? And maybe I'd go coach and then I'd come back and try to be in the office until 5 or whatever. But he was just doing the same exact thing that I was doing, and I was about to let him go because the old world business style was telling me that that's what you're supposed to do. Your 3 warnings, 3 strikes, whatever. And it was totally a huge, really good breaking point for me to kind of switch mentality. So targeted specific job KPIs. What mattered with him as a designer? How was his work? Were his clients happy? Were his team happy? All those types of things. That's what we switched the focus on, and it kind of turned into the whole evolution with the company. So start at the end and work backwards. We all want the cake. We all want the nice fancy cake, but you need to work backwards into each ingredient and then break that up into your team. Each team, is going to be tasked with finding the best butter on the planet, and another person is going to find you the best eggs on the planet. And they're going to focus on each thing specifically, because when you put that all together, it makes this. But when we just look at that and we think that 9 to 5 or working overtime or things like that leads to that, we're totally wrong, and it's going to be a terrible cake. So work backwards. Your marketing team, are you judging them off of marketing qualified leads? Your sales team, is it time to close and how quickly they're closing, money per close, all that kind of stuff? Are they doing a good job at setting up your clients, your prospective clients, for a good retention? Are they overly promising, or things like that? Look at that stuff that's specific to their job and kind of work backwards. And then things you can do to help with their mastery, if you remember one of our guideposts earlier, is bring them job-specific training. So we do a lot of training. We provide a lot of courses and certificate training and things like that, but we also let employees bring to us if there's things that they want to do, and we'll talk to them about paying for that and getting that for them. We have something else cool I'll talk to you about in a second on that. But the engaged stay for what they can give, and what they can give to the company, the disengaged stay for what they can get. And when you shift the culture, you're shifting that mindset, and then that's why it fixes the employees, it fixes your team, things like that. Because again, back to the Gen Zs. So Gen Z professionals, like millennials before them, typically expect frequent coaching and feedback. This approach is well suited to help develop the softer skills of Gen Z, which I think is a huge need with Gen Z. Whether communication, critical thinking, or creativity, and to pass along the tactic knowledge gained through experience. So they want a lot of feedback, they want a lot of training, they want, again, I think sometimes we kind of look at that as hand-holding, but I think it's more they just are I think the younger generations are more transparent on when they feel inadequate, which is a really good thing. I think my generation and older generations were the tough, like, we'll figure it out behind the scenes. I don't want to admit that I don't know what I'm doing or that I need help. So one of the things we do to help with that at 97 Floors, we have a book club and we have a library. So every month we read a book as a company, and then we talk about that, and we'll let employees pick that. We'll have, sometimes the executives will pick it. It's been really, really, really cool. One thing that I've been wanting to do for a long time that we'll start is kind of take the ideas from the book club and then do like a blog post on like all our discussions around them and stuff, so we can kind of share it with everybody. And then the library is any book that anyone wants to read, they can come to us, we'll buy it, they kind of rent it out, check it out, they read it, and then they give it back to us for other employees to get anytime. So we're a growing library of books around any kind of mastery topics. It doesn't have to just be marketing or self-help or things like that. And then conferences, we pay for our employees to go to conferences as a way to learn as well. If you guys are here for the first time, Seth Godin is absolutely incredible. As someone, I like to speak and I like to look at speakers for their skills on speaking and stuff. He's probably the most, he's like the most unpolished, polished speaker on the planet. Like he's perfect. He's very casual and he'll hold you in your hand and he's very intimate, but it's totally because of how much of a pro he is, but it's very cool. He's awesome. I can't wait. And it's all new stuff today too. And then another thing we do is we're working with Mountainland Technical College. We're helping them get a grant right now to develop a digital marketing career path curriculum where people can actually, just like a technical college for IT or other things, do this for marketing. And so we're helping them get the grant, then we're going to build the curriculum for them, and then we're going to actually teach it, be the professors, and we're going to have an internship program programmed into that. So really cool. And you can start, when you start to think about this culture stuff, it starts to affect the people around you, not just inside the company. So back to purpose. So purpose is elevating brands we believe in. So one thing I wanted to start sharing with sometimes I feel like marketing companies get, I don't want to say a bad rap, but like when you go to your networking conferences where it's like the B2B networking conferences or whatever, and you're gonna go meet other peers, you're driving there and you're like, I'm gonna meet some sweet CEOs, I'm gonna meet some VC guys, because that's what all the guys telling you about their conference, that's what they tell you you're gonna meet. And then you get there at your table of 7 and 4 out of 7 are real estate guys. Nothing wrong with real estate. I'm just saying how that I kind of feel like marketing kind of gets that same thing. It's like you kind of feel like at your table at the marketing or at the networking conferences, half real estate agents and half marketing. And we kind of get looked at sometimes like we're a commodity or we're not. I don't know. Where I feel very strongly that marketing companies can actually really have a huge impact on the world. And one thing that I talk about openly to our employees a lot. So how do we do that? Well, let's take like Dr. X, for example. By working with companies that we believe in, elevating brands we believe in, and real quick on that, that means believe in can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. So we talked to the employees and we said, look, who sales believes in might be different from who you believe in, and if you don't want to work on that brand, that's totally fine, and you can come to us and tell us that maybe you don't like that brand, you don't like something about them, you just don't feel comfortable helping them grow. That's totally fine. And then as a company, obviously we're not going to take stuff that's hurting society. We don't do any work with, illegal pills or pornography or anything like that. So Dr. Axe is a brand that we believe in. I feel very strongly, so we've had them as a client for a long time. When they came to us, they were kind of budding on the health scene, and then they quickly became one of the largest health sites on the planet. And every time I'd go visit them in Nashville, they'd be in a different office with like twice as many employees. And all the work we were doing in synergy with them was creating this huge, workplace with tons more jobs. Like as a marketing agency, if we help our clients grow, we're creating jobs and helping that. So that's a purpose we can get behind. Same thing too, is I'm a big believer in him. I had a big health journey that I kind of took, and he helped me a lot with that before he became a client, before we became friends. Just his site helped me a ton with a lot of my health issues. And so it's good to be able to use our skills to help other people. But more importantly, elevating people we believe in too. Have you guys seen this documentary? Insane. It's the best documentary I've ever seen. Free Solo, if you guys haven't seen it, Free Solo. It's unbelievable. It's insane. I was at El Cap that day when it happened. We were doing the Mist Trail. Every year I take a group of kids to do something really hard. So we had like 40 kids that we took through whatever. And the day before, a guy died on the Mist Trail. He fell because the water was so high from all the rain and stuff. And a guy fell into the river. It was like 60,000 pounds of pressure per square inch in the river. It was insane as we were like walking along the Mist Trail. And we come up and like, just to let you know, and I have like 40, 12 to 18-year-olds with me, and a couple of dads. And they're like, a guy's missing. We think he fell in the river. But if you guys want to go, you can go. And we're like, all right, so we went. But we just stayed, a little bit further to the side, went a little slower. But it was literally the day he had done it, like 2 hours before we got there. But no one knew because he just went up and did it. His crew knew. Like if you see at the end of the show, they're just kind of like patting each other on the back. He's talking by a car. There's no crowd. But it's like one of the most amazing things that anyone's ever done in human history. It's out of control. But anyways, really, really good. But some of the ways that we elevate the people we believe in. So we do a thing called Monday Cheers on our Slack, where our employees give shout outs to other employees based off of specific stuff. So not, again, like ambiguous stuff or old school stuff, like he's always here. Every time I come into work, he's here before me or anything like that. It's always super great stuff. And what's funny or what's cool is as I was preparing my deck, I was like, man, I probably need to like search through Slack and like find some really good cheers to put up on the deck. I just went to last Monday and they're that good because every single week it's that good and it's really cool. And peer-to-peer recognition is way stronger. A healthy peer-to-peer recognition environment is way better than executive recognition below. Way better. I mean, you should have both, but. Another thing that we do as part of our purpose is our alumni. So this is that office I was telling you about, down our subterranean office as the 97th floor, and we were on level 0, floor 0. But anyways, we have an alumni network that we've built. So that picture's probably half of the people in that picture work for us still and half don't. But we have a Slack channel that's an alumni network where all our past employees talk and post jobs. We had someone leave a couple months ago and like literally within a couple hours had a job from our alumni network because he just went on and he's like, hey, I'm leaving 97th floor. I'm looking for some new opportunities. And it was just like boom, 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 boom. It was awesome. And then we have events a couple times a year where we all get together, hang out, catch up with each other, bring the wives, bring the kids, have food, kind of talk. And it's been really, really, really cool. That was another thing, like on top of moving and other stuff, that some of my friends who own other businesses thought I was crazy for doing, for having an alumni network, but I think that again shows you that they're doing it wrong. If the people are leaving and he's scared to have them come hang out with him afterwards, then there's a way bigger problem than the alumni network. I also don't know I'm in the middle, if you can't tell. That must have been like my lumberjack phase or something, but I was living in Utah for too long. So like here, Brandon, one of our fellow alums who's here today, just posted a couple weeks ago on a job they're looking for. And then not only, maybe the alumni aren't looking for it specifically, but they're connected and they can help each other out. It's been really cool. It's just cool to see on the Slack channel. And then what I want to finish with is kind of our big focus this year, which is health. So just like the ping pong table with kind of like the fun perks, and I list some fun perks we do at the end kind of around there. Health is totally looked at wrong in culture as well too. Insurance and things like that, or just kind of covering insurance or supporting the traditional medicine route, I think is wrong. I'll talk about why. So we launched our new wellness program this year. And again, this is to increase the wellness of our employees so that they can be better employees and they can, provide better work. Traditional medicine is totally broken and backwards. So it's totally, it's really good if you get a bullet wound and you need surgery right away or something like that, or you have like an acute infection. Where it's not good is if you just don't feel like yourself anymore and you're super tired and you're cranky and you can't figure out why, and which is what happened to me. I grew up, I never need caffeine. I'm always running on all cylinders and was like that a lot and just always very positive and et cetera, et cetera. Well, through all kind of the same time that I was talking about earlier, I was getting really sick, and I would get sick all the time. Like I'd get whatever cold was coming around. I never felt well. I was getting really cranky, really short. I was really stressed out, and I had a lot of issues going on. My thyroid was all messed up. My testosterone was all messed up, but I had no idea. And I'd go to normal doctors, and they're like, "You look fine. You're in your 30s. You look like you're in shape or whatever." And we couldn't figure it out. And so I started. My dad was a pharmacist growing up, and that kind of made me a little bit more. And he's in the audience today too. But that made me a little more maybe like not so scared of like tackling medical stuff or like getting into it. Anyways, I started to just do my own blood tests, full blood panels, and kind of see what was going on, and kind of just like in marketing, look at the analytics and make changes. That's totally not set up. You can't do that kind of stuff in traditional medicine because they're always waiting. They want to wait. They don't want to fix you when you're starting to feel bad. They want to wait till you're totally a wreck and you're a disaster and you're going to die type of a thing. There's no preventative care. And it's also massively profitable, and it's super hard to disrupt. But I think the corporate sector has the best bet of disrupting it because we can provide things for our employees that then get them to look differently and take their health on by themselves with the guidance of a doctor instead of just always trusting and relying on doctors. So phase 1 of our wellness program, just like marketing, you need analytics to know where to start. And so we do full blood panel work for all our employees now. We partnered with a company called SteadyMD that I'll get into in a second, where we offer that. So why a full blood panel is so important is if you go to a doctor and you say, hey, I feel like my drive is a little low and stuff, they'll test like one testosterone marker like free T. They'll test maybe like one thyroid marker. They'll test things that you can't really do a lot. Just like you guys as marketers know with analytics, that'd be like getting one segment when there's millions of segments to get on trying to figure out why you're not increasing your conversion rate or whatever it is, same exact thing. So a full blood panel is covering all that stuff, and normally insurance doesn't like to cover that. So that's where we'll come in. We're covering that for our employees now so they can get that done. Another fun thing we're doing is passes to sleep deprivation tanks or float tanks. So if you're not familiar with those, it's really cool. So part of why we launched this too is we have an employee who's out in Austin right now. His wife was having the same kind of symptoms as me and was trying to figure things out. And they were in San Francisco at the time, and I was out visiting that office and talking to her, and I was like, you need to really look in deeper. Like, your doctor is not getting in deeper. And she started doing advanced tests that we were helping her get set up with, and she found out, she's in her 20s, she found out she had thyroid cancer. But her doctors didn't even find it because they weren't looking deep enough. And so then she got the help she needed. She's as of like a month or two ago, totally in remission and fixed from that. But at that time, her husband had such crazy anxiety because his wife in her 20s with their little kids was going through cancer that deprivation tanks were some of the only ways he could help deal with his anxiety. So if you're not familiar with them, they're really cool. The water is exactly the same degree as your skin temperature, so it's 98.6, and it's filled with magnesium salts. So you get in, you close it. You don't have to close it if you're claustrophobic, but you close it and you float, and you don't feel the water, you don't feel anything, you're weightless. And then the whole point is after you've done it for a couple times, you get into a REM state of sleep, but while you're awake. So it's like REM, deep lucid dreaming while you're awake, and you can work through a lot of problems with that. So the Navy SEALs use it to learn languages in like 3 weeks. It's crazy. They'll put them in there because you can totally like take all the focus away, and then they just jam all their language learning, whatever they use for that stuff, and they can like go to get deployed at Afghanistan and know how to speak the language right after. Because it just opens up your brain to all this stuff. And it's been around since the 70s. I think it was originally used for like torturing and stuff because you get them into like the REM sleep, and then you could like extract information from them and things like that. But anyways, it's really cool. So that was we wanted to do that as kind of fun, but again, as a way to open up our employees' minds too. There's other ways to deal with stress and stuff like that. SteadyMD is what I talked about before. This is a membership. So SteadyMD is really cool. It's a network of doctors. I actually invested in them last year, and I was such a big fan that I thought that was part of the plan. We need to bring it on board. So what you do is you go through and you talk about what you want to do and what your goals are, and then they'll pair you with a doctor, an actual MD, who specifically who is also in line with those things. So if you want to be, when I first went into my doctor, when I was figuring that stuff out, one of the things I was dealing with was Lyme disease, and keto helped me out a ton with that, going keto. I'm not keto now, but being really strict keto helped me out with that a lot. And when I went to the first doctor I was dealing with Lyme, he did a urine test, and ketosis was showing up in that. We're getting personal, urine tests. But he was like, "You're in ketosis right now," and he was freaking out like I was going to die or something. And I was like, "Dude, you are not the right doctor for me." So but that's what Steady EMD does, and they'll pair you up with what you want to do. It's really cool. So that's now all provided for all the employees. It's been really fun to kind of see. We just launched that. We started off our 97th floor wellness plan with Dan Pompa. He's actually here in Park City. He might be coming later today, but he's like the world's renowned expert on fasting. And he spoke to us for over an hour and a half. It was amazing. He's become a really good friend of mine. I reached out to him a little while ago when I had questions about fasting. Fasting is something that I'm a huge fan of. But he's going to lead us through a 7-week program as a company, where at the end we're all going to do a 5-day fast as a company. Now, when I first presented this to the employees, some of them were like, "Are you kidding me? You try to kill me, dude?" But so not everyone's going to do a 5-day water fast. A lot of us are. I'm really excited to do the 5-day water fast. A lot of us will. But everybody needs to do something where it's like they give up something, even if it's just no soda for 5 days, or just something, intermittent fasting or something. And I think it'll be really cool to kind of open up everybody's mind to healing yourself naturally and things like that. But it'll be awesome for us to go through this together. Like the Slack, our wellness Slack channel has already become really fun to be a part of. But when we're all day 4 and we're all feeling like we're going to die and getting on there and talking to each other and supporting each other, or coming in looking withered at the office, I think that's something that mentally, spiritually, resilience, I think will be really good for us as a company. And then, like I was talking about earlier, kind of like the ping pongs, these are other things we do, the traditional stuff, FSA, row, on-site, gym at HQ. We have ski passes to encourage getting outside. A lot of my friends think that's crazy too, because they're like, "Dude, so basically every powder day your employees are gone or whatever." But it's like, yeah, I hope so. I would be. I was when I lived in Utah. And now if the waves are good, I'm gone. Anyways, we do the AF Canyon run every year where we sponsor that, and that's a really cool run for cancer. And then we all encourage our employees to run in that too. And then lastly, our charity. We do 1% of our income every year, of our gross income. We give to charity, and we split it up and let all our employees pick the charity they want their percentage to go to. So it's split up evenly, and then every employee can take it and put it to whatever charity they go to. And that's one of my favorite days of the year as well, is we have a spreadsheet where everybody lists the charity they're doing and why. And it's really cool to learn all these personal experiences and life stories of why they want to vote with their dollars towards that charity. But I was getting worried when I was rehearsing this that this was kind of turning into a 97th floor advertisement. One, you are at a 97th floor conference, so that's okay. I don't feel too bad. But at the same time, I really want to get this word out to everyone I can, because we just need to be thinking different. We need to have more expectations, and we need to be pushing the envelope. So if you're not at the executive level or the HR level, just take some of these principles and just treat your team differently. Have them focus on their KPIs and not, don't say things like, like they come in late because they did a yoga class. Don't say something like, "Oh, must be nice," or something. Like, just think of the way you use words and the stuff you say to make sure you're focusing on the right things. You're focusing on the work and not other stuff. If you're lower entry level, starting out, go to your boss and say, "Look, this is how I work. I want to be judged according to this. I've worked backwards from my goal. I'm in marketing, and our overall goal for the company or for our division is this. I've worked backwards to how that applies to me. I want to be judged off of this." And you can start to train better or, cause change from the ground up by letting your, superiors, team members, etc., how you want to be looked at, how you want to be judged. And I don't think anyone can ever really argue with you saying you want to be judged on specific work KPIs instead of, how often you're in the office or taking 30-minute lunches or whatever. So again, why I talked about all this today and why I think it's so important we focus on it is it fixes everything. So much stuff. We didn't have to create policies. We didn't have to create procedures. We didn't have to roll out some big new thing to fix any of these. We didn't have to talk to the teams that were involved in each of these and say, okay, what are we going to do it? We just had to start treating our employees like adults, let them spread their wings and be them, and just guide them along the way. And when you do that, it all works out. So anyways, let's open it up for some Q&A. Anybody has any questions on anything at all?
When you guys changed from what you were doing before to your new row system, what was some of the pushback you got from employees, or what were some of the things that you didn't expect to happen that did happen?
Totally. So the biggest thing, it's funny, the biggest thing wasn't employees overall generally, and Wayne, pipe in on any of these questions that you think you can add to. Employees were obviously generally stoked on it. Because at first it just sounds like a free-for-all, but we were very careful. We took a long time on how we laid it out, and we talked about how, look, this has way more to do with not coming in, coming in whenever you want. It has way more to do with like how you treat your coworker, or like maybe you're in the office doing a conference call and half your team's at home. You need to not make them feel guilty for being at home. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of that stuff. Like we actually got certified as a row company. So it's not just like flexible work environment, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is just kind of applying some of these principles how you kind of want. We wanted to go all in. And so we actually worked with like consultants from Row who originally came from Best Buy where it started, and worked with us. And they had a lot of that stuff. So we had trainings that the employees went through, and then a lot of trainings that the leaders went through too. The biggest hurdle, I would say, or the detriment, was at first people having that natural mindset of, okay, if I'm not judged on if I don't have to be in the office, but I am a ton or I am more, I think that'll make me look better. Or like, if I don't have to get approval to go on vacation, but I choose out of my will to never take vacation, I think I'll look good that way. I think that was probably the hardest thing to kind of get over. Would you agree? Yeah, kind of like they put a lot of pressure on themselves. We had a lot of employees early on who were like really stressed out about it. And you would think it'd be the other way around. But now when it's all of a sudden on you, on the work, I know it takes a shift to kind of figure out. But we had some employees that were really stressed. But it worked, they figured it out afterwards. But in the beginning, because I think they felt too much pressure. Totally. So it became way easier. What's crazy is it becomes very self-policing where they almost kind of select themselves because your whole team is crushing it and you can tell who everybody's part, of the job that they're doing. It's very apparent if you're on the team and you're not picking up your point. And so but that's really healthy because it becomes very self-policing. It also, I think, it's just less arbitrary and it makes it more easy to deal with those situations. Yeah, it's much more black and white when you have to have that awkward conversation, too. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the process if an employee isn't delivering results? Like, how do you deal with that? How do you help them and work through those?
Yeah. So first, I think the best thing is to figure out: is there something you can do to help them? So is it more train? Do they need more training? So having a candid conversation with them on, hey, here's the results. They're not, it's not happening. What can we do as an organization? What can I do? What can your team to help you get there? What do you think? And kind of having that, open conversation and kind of trying to figure out to develop a plan together on how to figure that out. And then you're going to have follow-ups and stuff like that. I would actually defer that to Wayne. Do you have anything to add to that?
I can't hear the question.
Oh, what's the process to helping someone, who's falling short on their KPIs? Helping figure that out to help them get to where they need to be and really understanding, is it an employee issue where maybe that they're not someone who should stay, or is there things that we can do as an organization to help them get there?
Yeah, I think actually that's one of the difficulties with going row and just all this kind of stuff is it puts a lot more pressure on the employee and their manager because they're not going to be, managing their day-to-day. They're not micromanaging, right? So you can fall in a trap where once your results are starting to lack, it's kind of too late type of a thing. You're already in a spiral. So it puts a lot of pressure on the employees and managers to lay everything out beforehand, plan out the month, plan out the quarter, exactly what they're expected to do. And the employee to be honest and open to ask for feedback. So again, in Row, they teach us, instead of saying manager, which I've done like 3 times now. You're supposed to say results coach. And the difference is a manager manages your day-to-day and tells you how to do it. Results coach is like a coach, right? So they lay out what is expected, the results that you want your team member to achieve, and then throughout that, it's just coaching wherever the team member needs help in. So it does put a lot of pressure, and it was a difficult shift for us in the beginning. But now most people are used to it, and the ones that don't like it, because to be honest, it's not for everyone. Some people want to be micromanaged, even though it sounds bad, but some people do want that kind of security. It's just not the right environment for them.
Yeah.
This is not really a question, but it's more of an observation. Just I've worked in corporate America my entire career, and it seems like there's this rub right now between those that are in the C-suite have come from they've gone through the ranks and burned the midnight oil, and it's a sort of badge of honor, and then at the more junior levels, those that are doing all the work right now are millennials and born in 1990, et cetera.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's this real rub between the top of the house and the bottom of the house of the top of the house trying to figure out how to resonate and how to pull this off in a bigger organization. And make it so that the bottom of the house feels like they're being heard and those types of things. So anyways, I don't know if you've seen that or heard that in your clients.
No, totally. There is a huge, a lot of the bigger companies are like deathly afraid of Gen Z. They think it's going to be, like they don't know how to handle it. My buddy who put together a lot of that study, he works at Deloitte. He's one of the CMOs at one of the Deloitte offshoots, and he's talking about when he goes and consults with the C-suite, they're like freaked out of their minds for Gen Z. But I think most of that is, like you said, it's that gap. But it really just comes down to example. I think as long as they, you gotta practice what you preach, and you got to be willing to kind of let some of that old school stuff go. And but no, you're right. I mean, that's a big it's a big issue right now. Yeah, for sure.
We have a question on this side.
What's up,
Alex.
Chris? How you doing?
What's up, man?
So I love the things you're doing. Like the culture, the way you set things up is so unique. Quick question. I'm intrigued. Would love to adopt some of those things in future places that I go. But because you do things differently, do you feel like there's risk that happens by doing benefits differently? Like how do you weigh the risk of doing things so differently and disrupting?
That's a really good question. So my quick answer is I just like to do things differently, and I like to not care about weighing the risks if I feel that it's important. I also really, even though, like I said, marketing agencies I think sometimes don't get looked at maybe as closely as like a big B2C company that has a bunch of funding or whatever, things like that. I'm also hoping that we can inspire a lot of companies to think differently, so that's part of it too. I'm weighing the risk with that in mind too, that I'm willing to take on some extra risk just to be a little bit more vocal. Like I'm trying to get some reporters and people to do the fast with us, so then they could kind of talk about it too. I think it'd be really cool as someone third party to observe it. At the same time, but then Wayne is going to be the guy who's going to look more at the analytical side, and he can answer it too, but I would say he's just, we work backwards on the benefits we're going to do too, and kind of see how will this affect the employee specifically. Do we think that it's worth, the risk? But I'll tell you right now, the wellness program, we felt really strongly we need to roll it out, and we didn't even weigh any kind of like ROI risk or anything. We were just like, we need to do this. And it's ended up costing more than we planned, and we're not worried about it at all. Did you want to add anything? Oh, yeah.
Right over here.
Yeah, Chris, this is awesome. I really appreciate you
Thanks.
sharing. I definitely want to implement this in my company. My question is, in terms of like mistakes or things you would do differently, can you share like one thing where you're like, I thought this was going to work really well, but it didn't? Or is there something you would do differently in terms of implementing some of these things?
You'd probably be better to answer that.
So one, before we went full row, we tried a bunch of baby steps for 2 years. Yeah. And one was, if you're familiar with a company called Basecamp, those founders, they
we're inspired by
a
a lot of stuff they do.
He challenged companies in his TED Talk to do a No Talk Thursday. So we did that for a few months where you come into the office. This is back when everyone clocked in and clocked out and stuff. And no one was able to talk at all. You could communicate over email. We didn't have Slack back then too. Yeah. and it was a good experiment, but it was a disaster. Like, sometimes you just need to talk.
Well, I was really bad because I would have some urgent sales thing or something, and I'm like, screw this. This is my role. I'm just going to go in and talk to him and get the deal. I want to close this deal.
Yeah.
But it was a debacle for sure.
But we took inspiration from that. The whole point was that most people, to actually do work, they don't do work in the office because there's so many distractions. So we're trying to cut those out, and that led to where
that was also a
we're at
debacle
now.
too, because there's a lot of micromanaging because you're like to your neighbor, you're like, dude, it's No Talk Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like that,
But it's good to try stuff out, and kind of back to what Alex you were talking about with the risk. It is easier for us to be a small company than a company with 10,000 people.
Way easier.
Definitely. But that's kind of our MO, being a marketing agency too, is we're trying to encourage experimentation and pushing new levels, and sometimes you fail with No Talk Thursday or a certain marketing campaign or whatever, but you learn, and that's the way to get results. So that's good. Thanks. Let's
Awesome.
give it up
Thank
one
you.
more time for Chris Bennett.